Just last week, I made a video sharing my views on the best 11 made up only of Premier League players under the age of 23. And in response, one subscriber sent me a link to a Premier League Young Team of the Year from just over 10 years ago. Based upon their player ratings, the website WhoScored created an 11 of the Premier League's top performers aged 21 and below for the 2009-10 season, which I thought might make for an interesting bit of nostalgia. I should add, seeing as though I'm referencing a 10-year-old data collection from them, that I think WhoScored is probably the best online resource for player statistics, and no, they're not paying me to say that. Although, if anyone from WhoScored is watching and subsequently feels obligated to, DM me and I will send you my PayPal details. For those of you who are unfamiliar with WhoScored, as well as collecting and presenting data on players, they also use an algorithm to give players a fairly rudimentary but still interesting average rating out of 10. Their 2009-10 Premier League Under-21 Team of the Year, then, is just a collection of the players in each position aged 21 or younger with the highest average rating. Hopefully, that is straightforward enough. Now let's see how they've got on in the decade since that accomplishment. Here is WhoScored's 2009-10 Premier League Under-21 Team of the Year. Where are they now? Vito Mannone, Monaco. A goalkeeper that I have very fond memories of from his time on loan at Hull City in two separate spells, I can vouch for the fact that Vito Mannone showed lots of promise in his early 20s. It should be noted, however, that he makes this 11 by default as the only goalkeeper aged 21 or younger to have actually played in the Premier League during the 2009-10 campaign. Mannone made 5 appearances in the Premier League and 8 in all competitions, whilst vying with Manuel Almunia and Lucas Fabianski for a starting berth. He earned an average rating of 6.84, which is the lowest in this 11, keeping clean sheets against Fulham and Wigan Athletic, but shipping 5 goals in 3 games against Blackburn Rovers, West Ham and Birmingham City. Mannone later made 13 appearances in his final season with the Gunners in 2012-13, following those 2 loan spells with Hull City, before making a permanent transfer to Sunderland. The uncapped Italian was rather more suspect at the Stadium of Light, departing for Reading in 2017, where he would spend 2 out of his 3 seasons out on loan. Following the end of his contract at the Medeski last season, Mannone became a free agent, but just last week he joined Monaco, where one would imagine he would at best be a number 2. Rafael, Istanbul Başakşehir. One of a number of players signed by Istanbul Başakşehir this summer, with unusual announcement videos that have gone viral on social media. If you want to know the dark side of the reigning Turkish champions, go to the YouTube search bar and type in Istanbul Başakşehir HITC Sevens. In fact, I'll stick up a link to that video on screen at the end of this one to make life easier for you. Gosh, aren't I kind? Anyhow, Manchester United fullback Rafael was statistically, according to WhoScored, the Premier League Under-21 Player of the Season back in 2009-10. The actual PFA Young Player of the Year award went to James Milner, but he was 24, which I might suggest is a tad old for a Young Player of the Year, despite the fact that by that criteria, my hopes of winning the award are now finished. Rafael joined Manchester United along with his twin brother Fabio at the age of 17, and although you couldn't tell them apart to look at, Rafael was always the more talented of the two on the pitch. He spent the next 7 years at Old Trafford, registering 170 appearances, but seeing his game time decrease when he ought to have been hitting his prime. The Brazilian, who only ever won 2 senior caps for Brazil in 2012, spent 5 years with Lyon from 2015 onwards, and as mentioned, he joined unpopular Turkish outfit Istanbul Başakşehir this summer on a free transfer. Phil Jones, Manchester United. Alex Ferguson is perhaps one of football's greatest minds, and undoubtedly one of the sport's finest managers. But when he said Phil Jones could arguably become the greatest player to ever play for Manchester United, he really ought to have put more emphasis on the word arguably. In fact, you could have a tag team of Jeremy Paxman in his prime, the late great Christopher Hitchens, and Socrates himself, reincarnated in all his glory, and I'm not sure they could formulate a single convincing argument for Phil Jones having been the best footballer to have ever played for Manchester United. In Fergie's defence, Jones was once a talent, possessing excellent versatility, athleticism, and adventure in possession of the ball. He made his debut for Blackburn Rovers back in the 2009-10 campaign, becoming a regular the following season and subsequently signing for Manchester United for £18 million. Still at Old Trafford now, Jones has played almost 225 games for Manchester United, but he has suffered repeated injury problems and regular bouts of poor form ever since Sir Alex retired. Johnny Evans, Leicester City. The second Manchester United player in the 2009-10 Under-21 Team of the Year, Jonny Evans, was already a regular fixture for the Red Devils by the 2009-10 campaign. Whilst Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic formed one of the most formidable centre-back partnerships that the Premier League has ever seen, both had their injury problems, and Evans played more games than Ferdinand in 2009-10. The Northern Irishman made 18 Premier League starts and 28 starts in all competitions, as someone who Sir Alex always saw as a long-term centre-back solution at Old Trafford. He was therefore reportedly apoplectic when Louis van Gaal took the decision to sell Evans for a measly £6 to £8 million to West Brom in 2015, and within a few seasons, Evans was being valued at £30 million. The 32-year-old ended up leaving West Brom for a cut price after his relegation release clause kicked in, and top four chasing Leicester City were the lucky suitors. Evans has been outstanding ever since his arrival at the King Power Stadium, with his importance to Brendan Rodgers' side often going unnoticed. Emiliano Insigne, LA Galaxy. An exciting fullback when attacking down the left flank, but sometimes a little rash when running towards his own goal, Emiliano Insigne often divided opinion among Liverpool fans. Despite the differences in opinions, the stats say Insigne was the best young left-back in the Premier League in the 2009-10 campaign, a season in which he made a whopping 44 appearances. Insigne had a much better start to the season than he finished, and it's often been posited that he may have been suffering burnout towards the end of the campaign, and those struggles prompted Liverpool into selling him. Insigne has since turned out for the likes of Sporting Club de Portugal, Atletico Madrid and Stuttgart, with his time in Germany coming to an end in January 2020. Insigne left Die Rotten to sign for MLS outfit LA Galaxy, where the Argentine has since made 10 appearances. Nielsen, Sliema Wanderers. When you think of the Arsenal midfield of this era, it's startling to think of just how good their midfield could have been without any injuries. There was Fabregas, Nasri and Song, but they could have been joined by Nielsen, Jack Wilshere and Abu Diaby, who were all fine footballers, but for repeated injury struggles. I always liked Nielsen, who was really neat and tidy in midfield, albeit not always the most penetrative. As a 20-year-old, Nielsen played over 50 games in a single season for the Gunners, and without injuries, he could have become a club legend. A back injury in particular set back the Brazilian's development, and he returned to Sao Paulo on loan in 2011 and 2012 before joining his former club on a permanent basis in 2013. Following a brief stint in the UAE and a couple of forgettable spells back in Brazil, Nielsen joined mid-table Maltese outfit Sliema Wanderers last month, and if you spotted that transfer, you're either a keener follower of football than me, you support Sliema Wanderers, or you're Nielsen's agent. Alex Song, free agent. Speaking of the devil, I spoke about Alex Song only a moment ago, and he too was among the most impressive young players in the Premier League in the 2009-10 season. In fact, revisiting that previous thought, for all of his many qualities, one wonders if the large amount of early first-team exposure Arsene Wenger gave some young players, like Nielsen, Song and Theo Walcott, led to them suffering burnout and injury struggles in later years. That's probably totally unfair on the Frenchman, but it's just a thought which I rather swiftly distance myself from. Whatever the cause, Alex Song has certainly suffered a fall from grace over the last 5 or 6 years. Song became a pivotal player for Arsenal in the 2008-09 season, and for 4 years he put in some masterful midfield displays, combining with Robin van Persie with particular precision. In the summer of 2012, Song signed for Barcelona, where he hardly played, although his contract didn't expire until 2016. The former Cameroon international, who just turned 33, has since played for Rubin Kazan and Sion, seeing his contract terminated with the Swiss club when he refused to take a pay cut in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Marou Fellaini, Shandong Luneng. A man who is best remembered in the Premier League for his large afro, his importance to Jose Mourinho's Plan B, and of course, for elbowing people in the face, we may sometimes forget that Marou Fellaini was pretty handy during his time at Everton. The 2009-10 campaign was Fellaini's second season under David Moyes, and he earned rave reviews for his aggressive and enthusiastic displays in central midfield. Fellaini later played much further forward at Goodison Park before Moyes took him to Old Trafford in a major deadline day deal, and the Belgian would spend 5.5 years with the Red Devils. He departed in January 2019 for Chinese Super League side Shandong Luneng, where he now elbows Chinese people in the head instead, as well as having scored 16 goals in 37 games for the division's third place side. Chung Yong, Ulsan Hyundai. Chung Yong looked like one of the most promising Asian players of a generation when he first arrived at Bolton Wanderers under Gary Megson, as he beat players for fun and looked a constant menace even against the division's best defences every time he got on the ball. The 2009-10 season was the South Korean's first at Bolton, and he immediately won the Bolton Player of the Year award. Unfortunately, during a 2011 pre-season game, Lee's leg was badly broken by Newport County right-back Tom Miller, and by the time he returned to full fitness, Bolton were in the Championship. Chung Yong was never quite the same player after that setback, but he did later return to the Premier League with Crystal Palace, as well as winning 89 caps for South Korea and counting. The 32-year-old most recently signed for K-League 1 high flyers Ulsan Hyundai in March 2020, who currently top the league table and look set for their first South Korean championship since 2005. Gareth Bale, Real Madrid. Undoubtedly the biggest name in this 11, despite Alex Ferguson's prophecies about Phil Jones, Gareth Bale has become a bona fide world-class star of the game. The 2009-10 campaign was the season in which Bale went from left back to left wing and became a star for Tottenham, making Maicon look like Titus Bramble and making Javier Zanetti look like he was running through custard. Bale became even better at Tottenham on the right flank, becoming the best player in the Premier League in his final season, before departing to Real Madrid for a world record fee. The Welshman has played a pivotal role in numerous trophy wins at the Bernabeu, including 4 Champions League titles, which has been somewhat tainted by repeated injury struggles and clashes with the club's supporters and hierarchy. Bale has often said he feels unappreciated in the Spanish capital, and as this summer comes to an end, he has been linked with a return to Tottenham Hotspur, at least at the time of this recording. Nicolas Bendtner, Tarnby FF's M+32 team. When I said Gareth Bale was the biggest name in this 11, I obviously meant up until that point, since we hadn't yet come to the man, the myth, and indeed the legend that is Nicklas Bendtner. In all seriousness, whilst he may now seem to be little more than a meme, Bendtner was a centre-forward with bags of ability. His goal-scoring record for Denmark in the early 2000s proves the class that he had within him. I mean, he scored 6 goals against Portugal alone, which is quite remarkable, but his head never seemed to be in the right place. Bendtner was a large, mobile centre-forward who had good feet and an eye for goal, so it's little wonder Arsene Wenger persisted with him for so long. The 2009-10 season saw Bendtner bag 6 goals in 23 Premier League games, but it was downhill from there. Following stints at Wolfsburg, Nottingham Forest and Rosenborg, Bendtner returned to his very first club, RB Tarnby, just last month. However, Bendtner won't be playing for Tarnby's first team, who compete in Denmark's second tier, but for the club's old boys team, where he will get his first taste of competitive football for 9 months in Denmark's fourth tier. It's unclear whether Bendtner is doing this as a bit of fun or a way to find fitness, but it's all rather reflective of the arc of his career, given that he is still only 32. So that is it for today's video, which you are more than welcome to like, as in hitting the actual like button if you enjoyed it. I thank you all for tuning in and wish you all a very happy Friday the 18th of September, if indeed it is Friday the 18th of September, wherever or whenever you're tuning in. Feel free to leave any views you may have in the comments section below, do subscribe and turn on notifications for HITC Sevens, and remember you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both platforms anytime you like.